This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 87 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Back on Track with the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and Equestrian Collections. This is Chris Stafford in Lexington, Kentucky.
And I'm Brett Parbury in Penrose, Australia. And you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show.
Well, hi, Brett. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's always good to be back on the show.
Nice to have you back. I know everything was happening down under and continues. There's a lot of news coming out of there. And, being an Australian, you know that if you come onto my show, you're going to have a hard time about losing the Ashes to the Brits. You know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big cricket follower, but I am a big sports follower, and you just cannot avoid hearing the disappointing news that we lost the Ashes. I wouldn't like to be in the Australian cricket camp right now.
No,
it's under fire.
Pretty tough for them. But everything happens in Australia this time of the year. Of course, the Australian Open Tennis Championships as well. And anybody who follows me on Twitter will know that I'm a big fan of cricket, of tennis, of skiing, a lot of sports. But I, of course, will be following the Australian Open avidly. Do you pay attention to that as a sports fan? I mean, that's big news, isn't it? I know it comes from Melbourne, but you're not that far from Melbourne.
No, we're not that far, and Australia, it's such a sporting culture here in Australia. We grow up with sport, being surrounded by sport, so you can't help but take an interest in something like that, and sport just engrosses our television all year round. So, yeah, the Australian Open, I was in Melbourne last week, and a lot of the people down there I was working with, all the dressage riders are all off to the Open throughout the next few weeks. So, yeah, it's a big sport for us.
It certainly is. Well, the other thing that's been making the news down under, of course, is the terrible floods that up in Queensland. And I know they've been raising a lot of money at the Australian Open Tennis Championships. Do you have family or friends up in Queensland that have been affected, Brett?
Yeah, I do. I have a good show jumping friend of mine, Shane Davidson, was in the area where it was one of the hardest hit areas. However, in saying that, he was in a lucky position within that area. Also, Bev Edwards, actually, who owns JB Alabaster, that was on our team, was also on our team for WEG, was also in one of the areas that were hit. So I haven't heard any bad stories from either of those families. I have heard, as you do, some horrible stories starting to come out of the event. But yeah, look, it's just this is when Australians have to dig deep and help each other, and they do. They really dig deep and stand beside each other, because these natural disasters are just so devastating for these people. So the true Australian spirit comes out in these times, and this is when you're actually proud to call yourself Australian.
Yeah, and it is extraordinary that you would have such devastating floods when you have droughts for years and years on end too, don't you?
Yeah, it's a country of extremes. There's no doubt about that. We've you can say what you want as far as climate change or whatever, but this country has extreme weather conditions, and in the majority we've learned to live with them. These things happen once in every 100 years. It's just so happened that it happened. The last time this happened was 1974 in that area, less than 40 odd years ago. So look, it's just horrible, and you hear the stories. I mean, as horse lovers, which we are, you hear the stories of horses. You also hear some wonderful stories, I must say, of horses getting saved and rescued and the whole thing. But you hear some horrible stories, and I just feel sick about it when you think of how this all happens and why it happens. But yeah, anyway, well, onwards and upwards, I suppose.
Well, our thoughts go out to all of them there that have suffered from this, and of course the animals that they may have lost. But as you said, some great stories too of animal rescues as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, on the show this week, we have a couple of friends of yours, Brett, Edward Gall and Hans-Peter Minderhoud from Holland. Hardly need any introduction from us, but we're looking forward to that conversation coming up in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Listeners have been asking why Back on Track products work and what is the science behind them. Well, they have evolved from a combination of ancient Chinese wisdom and modern science, as well as skilled textile production. This result is a polyester polypropylene fabric with a ceramic powder that's melted into the fabric's very own weave. The ceramic particles reflect body heat as an infrared wave, a form of energy with a highly documented pain-relieving effect. This reflected heat helps to ease inflammation, reduce muscle pain, and increase blood circulation. Back on Track products can be used to warm up your horse's muscles before exercise, thus reducing the risk of strains or injury. Most importantly, the product's dual capacity to prevent injury as well as ease and expedite the recovery of already present injuries is what makes Back on Track products so unique. I hope that helps as to why their products are so effective. Visit them at backontrackproducts.com. That's backontrackproducts.com.
Well, Brett, as I said, these two guys are friends of yours, so I think I'll hand it over to you to introduce Hans-Peter Minderhoud and Edward Gall.
Yeah, Edward Gall and Hans-Peter Minderhoud are great friends of mine. I spent a year with them based in Haaskamp, and as we joked, Haaskamp's the centre of the universe when it comes to dressage. We're only joking, but that's what we'd say, just as a bit of a gag between the three of us. But no, Edward Gall and Hans-Peter are just fantastic riders. They're backed up by Nicole Werner, who is just a wonderful eye on the ground and a wonderful person to have around the stables in the arena. She's just I nicknamed her the super coach. She's just wonderful. So Edward and Hans-Peter, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome, Edgar and Hans-Peter Minderhoud. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show for Hans-Peter. Of course, you have not been on the show before, but Edward, you're an old hand. You've been here before.
Yeah, that's right, an old hand.
Well, welcome to the both of you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you.
Nice to have you back on the show. Edward, a lot has happened since you were on, I think, about a year ago, something like that. You've had a fantastic year, 2010. A big congratulations for everything you've done during the summer, but then, of course, the winter started off pretty well, too, for you.
Yeah, I must say, after the sale of Velocitas, I still have some good horses to ride, and I did win one World Cup with Sister Juri Mechelen, so that was really nice, and my other horse, next one, is also doing very nice, so yeah, we have a good winter season until now.
Well, I think no better person to have this conversation with you than Brett Parr, because, Brett, you have a horse, Lord Loxley, with these boys over in Holland. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, no, we have Lord of Loxley with Edward in training, and I spent the majority of last year based in Haaskamp with Edward and Nicole and Hans-Peter. So yeah, I know these guys very well, and I've been watching with close interest the year they're having to date, and as usual, they're right up on top again. They just, Edward and Hans-Peter just returned to the winner's circle horse after horse. It's just such an admirable performance from these guys. I think it's understated around the world on how good a riders these guys really are.
Go on, Brad.
I'll get... Nice. Getting all emotional. I guess we'll start with Edward. Edward, you have Sister now as your number one horse, and last weekend Zwalla Voice was out for the first time with you in the small tour. What's your plans for the year? You've started a great winter series. Will you then push forward now with Sister to try and make the World Cup final and be a part of that?
Yes, I'm really trying with her, but I already qualified now with her because I ride her 2 times in a qualifier, and because I won last year, then I'm allowed to go already. So I really aim with her on the finals. And okay, next one I also want to ride one World Cup qualifier still. Then I'm also qualified with him. So when something happens, I have 2 horses to go with.
Yeah, and that's I'd forgotten about next one. So he's the backup horse for you going forward. I mean, I suppose everyone's preparing this year for the European Championships. So you having 2 Grand Prix horses going to the Europeans would be, or eligible for selection for the Europeans, would be great for the Dutch team. What about Voice? What's your plan for him?
I don't really have a plan still with him. I want to ride some small tour competitions, and then we'll see. But it's looking good. He is doing nice PR, nice besides. So that all looks good. But still, he has to do it in the ring. But I first want to have some experience with him on the small tour level, because then I know how it will go. Yeah.
Hans Peter, you're also having a fantastic year. I mean, you started early with Stockholm and with Tango, and I noticed you took Nadine to Mechelen, and you're highly placed there, coming second to Edward. Which horse will you put forward as your World Cup horse?
I don't know yet. I did Tango in Odense and Stockholm. And I did Nadine in Mechelen, and she is doing Amsterdam end of this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then see how far I am with my ranking is quite good. I'm 6th at the moment, so I hope if Nadine is doing a good job in Amsterdam, then I do, I think, 1 or 2 more shows, and then I see which horse I take to the final.
Yeah, so you're both leaving it really just to see which horse is stepping up and doing the best come the day. And Vivaldi, I know he's a real favourite of yours. He also did well the other day in Zwolle.
Yeah, I competed him in Zwolle for the first time in the small tour, and it was still a bit with some mistakes, and it was his first test after all those young horse things, so he needs to get more experience, but trot work was really good, and then in canter, it has to get a little bit better in the ring, but for the first time I was really happy with him.
Yeah, no, good. I know he's a favourite of yours. He's such a character, that horse. And then I suppose on to the outdoor season. Will you both go to all of the major CBI and CHIOs, Aachen and Rotterdam, obviously, and through the year? That's part of the plan also?
I don't know yet, but I think so. I think we are doing the qualifications for the Europeans in Rotterdam this year, and then I try to do the WDM shows. And then and I really like to do Aachen, but I don't know. I don't have a plan yet. First winter season, and then
then the summer. Oh, that's good. Well, I'll be coming over quite a bit this year. I have plans to come over 4, maybe 5 times, just to keep my feeling up there. And it's hard from Australia, Chris, to try and be a part of this because you're so far away from the action. So luckily, Edward and Nicole and Hans Peter let me come and go and let me have a horse there. So it's good to go back and forth and keep in with these guys and just watch how well they ride, and then try and keep up with them.
And how is Sam doing, Brad?
No, he's good, Edward. He got home. He's healthy. He's working. I think he's working just as well as he was in Kentucky, and he really healthy. He doesn't know whether it's summer or winter, though. His coat is a really funny colour. He looks like a buckskin. But other than that, he's really healthy and good.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah. And I suppose, Chris, going back to you for the questions from the listeners.
Yes, we have a couple of questions, but before we get to that, I want to ask either of you: are you planning, when you mentioned the WDM series, will you be planning to include Florida on that now that that is back on the schedule?
I was first. It was maybe my plan to go when it was in January, but now it's in March, and now we have to go with some stallions to Denmark for that big stallion curing and shows over there. So we're not coming to Florida this year.
Well, you know, as Brett mentioned, you have so many good horses right now. You are associated with some good horses, and I have to say, in your case, Edward, very good horses before Totulus came along, and now continuing to produce these fantastic horses. How many between you do you have in the barn that you're riding, the stables that you're riding each day?
We both ride like 8 or 9 horses a day, and that's all kind of horses, also older ones, but also the younger ones. So, but we like to have also already the young ones in our stable that we can see how they are when they are younger, and then it's easier when they get older. Then you know the horse much better, and that's also easy then to ride them. And I also think you need to have really good young horses and also the older ones, because you know they can be sold or maybe get injured. So you always have to have some backup with horses, and I think we do a good job in that to be sure that we have good young ones after the little older ones.
So you're always producing the young horses. Where do you like to find them, Edward? Where do you typically go to find your youngsters?
Yeah, we have some stallion owners that always bring us young horses, but also people send us mails and videos and DVDs, and then we look at them, and then we ask them to come here and show the horses, and when we really like them, we see if we can do something with the owners, or maybe buy them or half or whatever. That we are sure that we have every time new good young horses.
Well, you, as I said, have been associated with so many good horses, and we shouldn't let it be forgotten so easily that the World Equestrian Games, you had at least 3 very good horses that you had your fingerprints on in one way, obviously with Ravel and Totulus, but also with helping Brett here.
Yeah, and that was really nice. I really liked it there because you saw Brett and Sam growing each time, and it went better every time, and that was really nice. And it was really nice to help Brett also there, because he was really eager to do a good job, and he did. He had a good result there, and it was really good.
It really was. But I have to ask you too, I mean, your very successful partnership, are you competitive between yourselves, or you just let the horses do the competing?
No, we just are competitive in the ring, but not somewhere else, because I don't think it will work when you are really competitive outside the ring. Of course, when we ride, we both want to win as well. Hans Peter wants to win, and I want to win. And I think that's good, because that's the sport is all about. And and when we are out of the ring, then it's no problem. And it doesn't matter who wins, because we take it home anyway then.
Yeah, so...
Chris, sorry to interrupt, but having been with these guys, I think they probably have one of the best riding balance lifestyles, where they really don't let things get to them outside of the arena. Like, you just see them compete, they be professional, and that is it. And they don't really get too wrapped up in the whole thing. They really keep a good balance on the lifestyle, and they work very, very hard. As you say, as Edward just said, they ride 8 or 9 horses a day, and they work very, very hard. But when they leave the stables, and they try to have a life outside of this sport. We all know this sport just takes over your life, and they do a good job in keeping themselves balanced.
Yeah, I think that is key, and I think you can see that in the quality of the riding, because it does show, what how well rounded you both are as human beings that make you as successful as you are. But I'm sure our listeners are going to wonder, well, if you balance your life outside of the arena and outside of work, what do you do for fun? Is it the movies or books? What do you do for fun?
Eating sushi.
Eating sushi.
And shopping.
And shopping.
And laying on the couch.
Well, as I said, I have 2 or 3 questions here from our listeners, and one comes from a lady called Patience Prine-Carr, and she asks, could we ask Hans-Peter about the stallion Vivaldi that he rides, and when we can get good semen in the US from him?
Oh, I think that's possible, but then they just have to send an email, and I think we can arrange that. Or then the stallion owner has to arrange it, because I think it's possible, but I'm not quite sure, because I do the riding part and not the breeding part with him.
Okay. We'll also have a question from Liz Call. Liz is a regular listener to the Dressage radio show, and she says she's been watching your masterclasses for a few years now, and she even watches the ones that are not in English, and she's enthralled with the idea of tempo control. Obviously, the masterclasses are held in very electric environments and on the advanced horses. Is the daily work at home similar to what they show in the masterclasses, and do they stress the tempo control with the younger horses as well? Either of you can take that one.
Is it a question for? Oh, okay, then I take it. Yeah, I think for us it's a really important thing, and I think it's okay. With the young horses, it's first very important that they get the balance and everything, but yeah, we work a lot of the balance and the straightness and the tempo control, yeah.
And it's also in the ring, it's of course it's more difficult, but when you have a good control at home and you practice more outside like home, and when we do it, we take the horses to big arenas when we do master classes. And of course, the first time it's difficult, but when they get used to it, then it's getting better and better, and that's good for us because we don't show so many the young horses, and when we show them, most of the time we show them in the small 2 classes, and when we bring them to master classes, then they get used to the environment where they have to do their big tests, and then it gets better and better. But when you have your tempo control at home, then most of the time it's also good in the test.
Chris, I think that tempo control would be one of the main things as I understood it as the year went on, and as I could get better at doing it, is probably one of the main things that led to my improvement. I mean, I'd never really heard of it until I went with Edward and Hans-Peter, and it just makes so much sense because, as we know, in the competition arena, things don't go perfectly, and you need to have those adjustments to make things look like they are perfect. And tempo control, as I got better with it, it just that's probably single-handedly the thing that made the difference.
Edward, do you want to add to that?
No, that's true, because it takes some time, and especially with young ones. That's why it's important that we already have when we get the horses. It's easier to get them when they are younger. Then it's easier to make them go in the way you want them to go. And when they get older, it's also always a little bit more difficult to change that. Because then they are used to kind of way of riding and stuff like that. And when it's younger, then it's easier. And then, it's the most important thing. It's the tempo control.
Okay. And just one.
All the exercises are also much easier.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's understandable. Just one last question for you, Edward. And this comes from somebody from the thoroughbred racing world here in the States, from Donna Barton Brothers, who's a friend of the Horse Radio Network. And she writes, how did Totilas stallion duties, how did they fit in with his show schedule, and how did that affect him? And as you know, in the thoroughbred business, they would not do the breeding and the competing at the same time, the racing at the same time, but we do that in the sport horse world. How did it affect Totilas, if at all?
It didn't affect him so much. He was just a little bit more stallion in the stable, but with riding, he didn't change at all. And it's like we did the breeding, but when I went on the competition, we just stopped the breeding, and that was the important was the competition. And when he came back, he started again, and he did it only like 3 times a week, not more, because I think when you do it too much, then it's not good for the horse, then it doesn't work. But I think 3 times with him it worked, and for big competitions we stopped like a week before or something. And then after the competition, he started again every time, and that worked well with him.
Well, I just have one final question for both of you, and that really is reflecting on your careers so far and how successful you both have been, and at the highest level of the sport and on different horses. It begs the question, what is left? Hans-Peter, let's start with you. What are your ambitions in the sport? What are your goals? Where do you imagine that you will be in 10 years' time, or would like to
be? 10 years, that's quite a long time. But for now, I just want to just go on with my horses and keep on riding like 7 horses a day, and also the younger horses. And then I really want to go to the Olympics in London. That's my, of course, the Europeans in Rotterdam now, but Olympics in London, that's really my big goal. And then after that, hopefully after that, then we see what we're going to do then. But for now, I keep on riding.
You're working on the European and the Olympic medals. And what about you, Edward?
Yeah, for me it's a little bit the same. For the European I want to do, and of course I try for London 2012. And then in about 10 years, then I don't think I will ride that many competitions anymore. And then I do some more clinics, I think, and teaching. But yeah, the horses will always be there. Maybe not that much as they are now, but you never stop with the horses, I think. They will always be some part of your life. And that's also nice, but sometimes it gets a lot with all the horses and all the competitions. But for now it's good, but I don't think you can do that until you are 60 years old.
No, then you're too old.
Then I'm too old.
Do you ever...
Straight on the horse, and then I stop.
Okay.
But
then we tell you to stop.
Yeah, then tell me to stop when it doesn't look good anymore.
I don't think you're in any danger of that, Edward, hearing that. But do either of you, just finally, have any other business interests outside of riding and competing and so on that you'd think, I'd like to do that one day?
Yeah, Hans-Peter wants to have a restaurant.
What's Japanese? Is that sushi?
No, that's too difficult for him. It must be easier.
Can make that. No. I don't know. But first, I keep on riding for the first 10 years, and then we'll see.
Oh, that's a lot of horses and a lot more competition. So we really look forward to watching both of you. And I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show. Edward, come and see us again. And Hans-Peter, thank you for joining us this week. It's been great to have you both on the show. Have a fantastic World Cup series. And, of course, leading up to the Europeans, have a great summer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, great to hear from them, Brett. You know that those guys, as you said, they're very, very successful. It was great to have them on the show and hear what their plans are. And they're just in such winning form. You know, anything can happen now. They certainly are leading the Dutch squad right now, so we'll be following their season through World Cup, and of course, when we get to the outdoor season, not least of all eyes will be on Rotterdam in their backyard, just to go down the road for the European Championships. That's got to feel quite cosy too for them, Brett.
Yeah, I'm hoping to be in Rotterdam myself this year, so I look forward to seeing them compete. And as we said before, these guys, they have a wonderful attitude around the stables. They just bring the best out in you, and I wish them all the success, and I wish Holland all the success going forward towards London.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming to Brett's Tip of the Week in just a second after this break.
Hey everyone, it's that time of the year again for after holiday closeout sales, and Equestrian Collections has hundreds of items for you at tremendous savings up to 70% off. Closeouts from Ariat, JPC, Pessoa, Ovation, and so many more. Highly discounted specials include ladies' apparel, footwear, saddle pads, bags, belts, coats, and the list goes on and on. Remember, you can save up to 70% now, but this is a closeout and quantities are limited. So grab the keyboard and type in equestriancollections.com. You'll see the great big ad right on their homepage for all of their closeout specials now for the month of January. Get them before they're gone at equestriancollections.com.
Well, Brett, I think you've got a great idea for our listeners to pay attention to this week in reviewing management of horse welfare and management. And, there are so many aspects to it, as we all know, the diet and supplements, farriery and veterinary routine. And it's all about anticipating the horse's needs, but not to be complacent with the management procedures that you have in place, but to review those protocols.
Yeah, Chris, when you ask me for a tip of the week, I always reflect back on what we're doing, and we're as a stable, we're always trying to evolve and look at, I've always said to my staff, and it's not what we're doing, it's what we're not doing that I want to know about. And at the moment, I'm obsessed with management, and I guess I've been lucky that we're surrounded by some very good professionals who I'm asking the question all the time, what is it we're not doing? Come on, think, tell me what I'm not doing that I could be doing so that I could be doing this better. And we've gone right to the point now of just reviewing everything we do. So starting from the ground up, we're looking at the shoeing of every horse. We're looking at, obviously just the usual things like the icing of the hot spots in the legs after working. We're looking at the diet, the feed. Are we feeding the right feed for starters? Are we feeding in right intervals through the day? Are we getting the proportions of feed right? What supplements are we using? Are we using the correct joint and hoof supplement to build strength or to build strength in the feet and joints, that the joints don't wear out in this high impact sport. We're looking at the fact of the obviously osteopaths and the massage people and the dentists and all these things, but trying to also get a picture of the horse or bringing the horse to their best, and then rather than calling out, say, the osteopath to your horse when it feels bad, we're actually doing it the other way around. We're calling these guys out when the horses feel at their best, and getting them to get a good feeling for the horse when it's at its best, so that when the horse is at its worst, we have a reference point to come back to. And so we're doing things like photographing the feet, getting x-rays of every horse in the stable, just so we know, and getting x-rays not when there's a problem, but when the horses feel good, so that so the vets have a feeling on how the horse was when there is a problem. We're looking at travel management. In Australia, we have to travel a long distance every time we compete, and looking at travel management and what sort of impact that has on horses. Because I guess what stood out to me is, it took so long to get Victory Salute to Grand Prix, and then it took so long to get him good at Grand Prix, that the last thing I wanted to do was have him break down once I got there. So I wanted to look back through his life and work out, had we done things that had jeopardized his future, and was there wear and tear showing up now that we could have avoided on the way through? So, yeah, it's made me look at my show schedule, and it's made me look at the travel, the way we travel. It's made me look at the way we train. And, yeah, so I just think that we all need to do that, and we all need to really review what we do. And just because they did it 40 years ago this way doesn't mean it's right. You know, I think we have enough science behind the sport now to draw upon better ways in management. And I think management, especially people who are out there who want to push forward and have a big career in the sport, I think management is as important as a good riding system, because without the horse you can be the best rider in the world, but if you know, unless you've got your horse, you're nobody.
Yeah, I think that's so true, you know, and as you say, establishing a baseline for all the normals, all the normal levels, no matter how, you know, which horse it is, at what level, you have that to work from. But as you said, it's so much of what we do depends on good stable management, good horse welfare and stable management, and I think it's very, very, very helpful. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you, Brett. Well, in a moment, we're going to talk about your clinic and competition schedule that you referred to just now, and your plans to go back to the Netherlands to join Hans-Peter and Edward for some more training. So don't go away. We'll be back right after the break.
Choose Kentucky Performance Products supplements because the horse that matters to you matters to KPP. This week I want to speak with you about Elevate Maintenance Powder. This time of year, horses are consuming very little grass and may not be able to get enough natural vitamin E. Horses in riggers training, seniors, broodmares, and stallions often require additional levels of vitamin E to meet their needs. When you need to supplement with natural vitamin E, choose Elevate Maintenance Powder. Affordable, effective, and research proven. Elevate Maintenance Powder's vitamin E is nature's most powerful antioxidant, protecting your horse on the cellular level. Elevate Maintenance Powder supports the strong immune system and healthy muscle function necessary for top performance. It's affordable, it's easy to feed, and you can learn more about this and all their other products at kppusa.com. That's kppusa.com.
Well, Brett, as you said, you're going to be heading back to Europe to train with Edward and Hans-Peter at the barn up in the stables up in the Netherlands. But you also have a busy clinic schedule. As you've said when you've been on the show before, you're combining all of those activities. So what does your next few months look like?
Yeah, I tend to plan 4 months at a time, and my schedule up until May is very busy. I've identified in my business that the majority of my income will come from clinics. The actual riding of the horses is not that profitable for us in this country with the fee structure the way it is and the overheads that you have to incur as a rider. So I try to combine 4 to 5 horses of riding with a busy clinic schedule. And then this year will be a little bit unique in the sense that I'll have to make probably 4 or 5 trips back to Europe to Edward and Hans-Peter's place to keep on top of on Lord of Loxley and how to ride him and be a part of his development. Edward's kindly riding him for me and bringing him to Grand Prix. The horse, together with Victory Salute, will be my 2 horses going forward to try and qualify for London. So I just feel it's important that I, not only for Lord of Loxley, it's just important for my own development to be back in Europe as much as I can this year, and just keep the intensity. I mean, I find that when I'm surrounded by good riders, I ride well, and when the intensity is not as high, I don't ride as well. And when you're surrounded by those guys and you're riding with those guys on a daily basis, it brings the best out in you. So that's what we'll be looking to do this year, go back and try and get him to some shows, and I think we'll look at the outdoor season as a possibility, and then whether we go to the main CDIs or whether we go to some of the peripheral shows in Europe will be determined by how well we're going.
Yeah, so the old adage, if you ride with the best, it raises your game too, and that rings true, doesn't it?
It does.
If you're going to play with the big boys or going to aspire to compete at the top level, you really just got to be surrounded and exposed to that. And I think that's, for countries in the States, it used to be the case in the States, but certainly in Australia and New Zealand, that's why so many riders are naturally forced to go to the Northern Hemisphere to get that kind of exposure. Yeah,
that's right. I think I keep saying to people here, there's one major difference between Northern Hemisphere dressage and Southern Hemisphere dressage, is the level of collection and the activity of the horse on the hind leg in the collection. They would be the two main differences between Northern and Southern Hemisphere. And the only way you can get to that is by pushing yourself and having people around you pushing themselves, and then in turn pushing you. And when you go to Europe, you go to a show and you see someone, in the next stable, riding with that level of collection and that level of energy and impulsion through this, softness and suppleness. It makes you lift your game.
Yeah, for sure. So you're going to be as busy as ever, but I hope you're going to find time to come back on the show in the next few weeks, Brett.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I always love coming on the show. I think you're doing a wonderful job and promoting our sport and keeping the big world sort of in touch with the top sport, which is wonderful.
Hopefully, that's what our goal is here on the Horse Radio Network, to unite the whole horse world one show at a time. and apologies again to you on your terrible defeat in the Ashes, but we hope that the Australians come through in the Australian Open in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're coming into rugby season too, so I'm not sure of the schedule for rugby, but you can have the Ashes as long as we can win the rugby. I'm happy.
All right, we'll be watching that as well. All right, well, thanks again, of course, to all of you for listening here to the show, and my special thanks, of course, to Brett for being a part of our show, and to our guests, Hans-Peter Minderhoud and Ed Woodgall this week. And don't forget to follow our show notes, dressageradio.com. Visit us on Facebook as ever, on the fan page there, and leave your comments, questions or suggestions, or you can email those to me, chris@horseradionetwork.com. Follow us on Twitter, Chris E. Stafford or Horse Radio. We'll tweet away, and I am known to tweet about cricket and tennis and anything else that comes to mind, so follow us there. And, of course, you can leave a voicemail at 270-803-0025. And I want to thank our sponsors, of course, all of our sponsors that make this show possible, and to our editor each week for turning the show around. And also to mention that we will be producing a new show here on the network, Equestrian Legends, that will be coming soon. It'll be a bi-weekly show that I'm looking forward to hosting and bringing you memories and reflections from some of the greatest horsemen and women of our time. So all that to come here on the network in the next few weeks. Well, that about wraps it up, as I said. My thanks to Brett there, down under, and I will be back same place, same time next week. So until then...
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and to all the people out there listening, thank you very much for joining in, and just remember, please don't text while you're riding.